With the World Championships right around the corner, and the Fiendsmith meta in full swing, there is one loving deck that has become the nightmare of the format, and that is Yubel. And with the Yubel deck top 4ing in multiple nationals across the globe, many players are going to have to be competing versus this deck. And that's why in today's video, we're going to be going over how to beat Yubel. So let's get right into the video. And now in order to beat our enemies, or our friends, we have to know what it is that they do. In the past, Yubel was a very control-oriented deck, but now it has a little bit more teeth. And that's because with the newest support out of Legacy of Destruction, Infinite Forbidden, or even Terminal World, we're seeing that Yubel is climbing through the ranks of the metagame and competing with decks even like Snake Eye Fiendsmith. And with the newest additions such as Spirit of Yubel, Nightmare Throne, and even Nightmare Pain, it adds a layer of consistency to the deck that we have never seen before, and these are only the starters. Being able to destroy your own Yubel cards to be able to summon others from the deck, this allows you to load up the field with level 10s as well as Yubels in the graveyard. And that allows them to go into very powerful extra deck cards, such as Phantom of Yubel, as well as Virudis, the final bringer of the end times. And with the Phantom, we're able to prevent monster effects by turning those effects into something that will destroy the Yubels right out of the deck. And as we know, that is not something we want to do. But on top of that, when your opponent activates a card or effect as a quick effect, you could attach a material from it, negate the activation, and then you can detach another material to destroy one card on the field. And then if that is not enough, if it attacks while it has material, you get to destroy a card, or if it is destroyed, you get to destroy a card. So the bringer of the end times will make sure that you are ridding the opponent's board of all of their important resources. And then what sends this deck over the top is the inclusion of the Fiendsmith engine. So not only are you utilizing the Engraver, Tract, even the Fabled Lori, but you're incorporating the extra deck from the Requiem, Sequence, and Fusion Summon all the way up to the Fiendsmith's Lacrima, or even the Desiree. And not only that, but with the inclusion of the TCG exclusives such as Aerial Eater, as well as the Necro-equipped Princess, we're seeing with all the level 6 Fiend type monsters, we're able to include popular extra deck choices such as Beatrice, or even DDD Wave High King Caesar. And it is with these TCG exclusives that many players believe the Yubel deck in the TCG will actually be better than what we've actually seen over in the OCG. And to wrap up the final combo line that the Yubel deck actually does, we see the inclusion of Unchained Soul Lord of Yama, Sharvara, as well as Chamber of the Unchained, so that on the opponent's turn they can use the Soul of Rage to link with an opponent's creature to go into cards such as SP Little Knight. So that's enough of what the deck does. You are here to know how to beat it. And now we're going to be starting with cards to use when going first against the Yubel deck. And one of the most popular cards many players have been incorporating in their side deck is Different Dimension Ground. And that is because for one turn, all the monsters that would be sent to the graveyard are banished instead. And without many of the monsters in the graveyard to revive themselves and extend into their combo line, Yubel is potentially dead right out of the gates. And it's for these reasons we're seeing many players are utilizing Different Dimension Ground not only against Yubel, but many of the meta decks in this current format. And is the reason why we're including it first on today's How to Beat video. Other popular going first options are cards such as Dimensional Barrier, being able to call Fusion and cut off many of the Fusion lines such as Phantom of Yubel, the Fiendsmith combo line, as well as the new TCG exclusives. And now this will force the opponent to go into more of an Exceed or Link-based strategy, but forces them out of their most popular options as well as a combo line with the Fiendsmith altogether. And much like Different Dimension Ground, Dimensional Barrier is a mainstay in many players' side decks, and that is because the increase in popularity of cards such as Angel of the Blue Tears. And this is because it allows you to set any trap card from the deck to your field whenever effect damage is inflicted, which is easy to do with the new Fiendsmith's Lacrima. So continuing with going first cards, that leads us to other traps that can be set, such as Destructive Daruma, Karma Cannon, or even cards such as Ice Dragon's Prison. Karma Cannon, a popular state, being able to flip down a majority of the Yubel's deck and send the rest of the links to the graveyard. Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon has been a mainstay in many of the Labyrinth matchups, and then Ice Dragon's Prison has been gaining in popularity, and the increase in Ice Dragon Prison tech is not surprising considering almost every deck is utilizing the Fiendsmith combo, and being able to banish multiple Fiends, keeping them out of the opponent's graveyard, will be very important in interrupting their combo line. And this is why many players have been looking at Ice Dragon's Prison chosen for the future of the side deck. And some popular options that will stay on the board a little bit longer are cards such as There Can Be Only One, keeping the Yubel deck down to one Fiend monster on the board, which is honestly unmanageable for the deck if it wants to proceed with the combo line, and even some of the most popular options already being utilized, such as Skill Drain. And then wrapping up the going first cards, we have a few spicy options, such as Power Filter. Essentially, with the majority of the Yubel deck at 0 attack, Power Filter would be floodgating them out of the game, keeping them from summoning a majority of their monsters, and honestly, that's an easy GG. While other cards such as Deck Lockdown will be keeping them from adding from the deck, or even summoning from the deck, and as we know, a permanent Drone Lockbird, never a bad idea. And the last cards to be utilizing going first against the Yubel matchup are some of the most powerful, and that is Kokimero Drago, as well as the Black Goat Laughs. And now, as we saw, the Tenpai deck just won the European World Championship qualifier. We've seen that Kokimero Drago being included in the side deck of the Tenpai deck actually does take it over the top when it is actually playing against the Fiendsmith meta. So rather than just playing against Snake Eye, Bellstar, Whitewoods, or even Yubel, we're seeing that summoning out Kokimero Drago and cutting the opponent out of all light or dark special summons is the nail in the coffin in the current metagame, and is why if you are playing a Tenpai build, you need to include Kokimero Drago in your side deck. And wrapping up with the Black Goat Laughs, we're seeing that this card is starting to be utilized in multiple decks. And that's because by declaring a monster name, your opponent can't summon that monster unless it's from the graveyard. And this hinders many of the combos that summons Yubel from the deck, or many of the monsters from the extra deck. And not only that, but by banishing it from the graveyard, you can essentially prevent a monster on the field from activating its effect. And it is for these reasons that we're seeing the Black Goat Laughs has been seeing an inclusion in many players' side decks as well as main decks, and this trend will be continuing well into the future. And now it is potentially the most important part of any How to Beat video, and that is going second with hand traps. And probably the most popular hand trap ever is Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, and that doesn't stop here. Being able to prevent the opponent from summoning or adding from the deck is all powerful against the Yubel matchup. Being able to prevent a summoning from the Spirit is sometimes very good, but a lot of players have been utilizing Ash Blossom to go after the adds from the Nightmare Throne or the Nightmare Pain, because cutting off some of these starters will actually be detrimental in their end board, and a lot of times will actually kill the engine before it starts. And that's why we're seeing Ash Blossom and Joy Spring still a mainstay in the Fiendsmith meta. And now if you're confident enough that you can stop all of it, you can technically go after the Fiendsmith combo line with the Requiem, but honestly, preventing the Yubel is the most important thing. And then following suit with preventing them from add from the deck to the hand, we have none other than Droll Lockbird. And with many decks adding from the deck to the hand, whether it's the Wanted package, Snake Eyes, the Nightmare Throne package, or even the Fiendsmith engine, Drone Lockbird has been a powerhouse in the format and has been a mainstay in many players' side decks. And that is needless to say, the Yubel deck being drone locked is a nightmare scenario for them. And that is why it is a card you should be including in your side deck versus the Yubel matchup. Other popular hand traps that have been revolutionizing the metagame is Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Not only can Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit be spot removal, but we've actually been seeing it utilized in destroying the field spells as they activate. Once the field spells activate, Ghost Ogre will destroy them, and then the effect is null and void. And it is because Konami printing these field spells with stronger and stronger effects, we're seeing players utilize Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit in their side decks to combat the field spell power creep. And now the next card on today's list is probably the most powerful hand trap, and that is Nibiru the Primal Being. And now, like any good meta deck, we're seeing Yubel does summon well over 5 times in their turn. And now, even though Yubel can go into cards like Phantom or High King Wave Caesar, we're seeing that Nibiru has openings to crash down onto the opponent's board well before those cards are established. And with this card being so good against Snake Eye, against Yubel, against Spiritual Beast, we're seeing Nibiru take its place as potentially the most side deck card in TCG and definitely over in the OCG. So definitely keep the Giant Rock in your side deck when going against the Yubel matchup. And before we get into the secret tech hand traps, we always have to say, if you're able to run Dimension Shifter, run Dimension Shifter. It goes without saying, if you can be a gremlin, be a gremlin. But without further ado, let's get into some of the best hand traps in the entire format, especially against the Yubel deck. And these cards are undoubtedly the Bestial package. Utilizing the Bestial Druisworm, the Baldrake, or even the Magna Hut, we're seeing that the Bestial package is putting in work in all the nationals across the globe. And that is because, much like when we're talking about the Koki Meru Drago, we're seeing all of the meta decks are light or dark. And with many of the meta decks combo lines relying on the graveyard to extend, and this includes Yubel, we're seeing the Bestial package becoming a staple not only in some players' side decks, but in many players' main decks. Not only do they have decent stats, but they also banish cards out of the opponent's graveyard that are kind of the extenders of the opponent's combo line. Being able to banish Yubel targets or even the Fiendsmith combo line, Bestials offer that line of interruption that normally other cards burn immediately just to do. And then on top of that, they're bringing bodies to the board that are also level 6, so you can utilize them into going into cards like Beatrice. We're seeing some interruption by summoning the Bestials, but you can actually spot removal when they're on the board or sent to the graveyard. And it is for these reasons that I recommend the Bestial package when you are looking to beat the Yubel deck. And the last hand trap we're going to be mentioning on today's video is a very popular one, especially against the Yubel matchup, and that is Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. And this is because the Fantastical Dragon is amazing when dealing with the Link decks, and Yubel links a lot. Being able to draw cards off the Fantastical Dragon's effect, refreshing your hand, and then offers a layer of protection when your opponent tries to target your creatures. And this is something they're going to do often. And again, on paper, this might seem a little strange, but we're seeing many hand traps that allow you to draw or refresh your hands, such as Molcharmy. The Fantastical Dragon Phantasme has been putting in work against the Yubel matchup. And then when they try to go into the later parts of the combo line, such as Unchained Soul of Rage, the Fantastical Dragon Phantasme will offer that extra line of interruption, ensuring your cards are not used for link fuel. And that is why many players have been utilizing Fantastical Dragon Phantasme going against the Yubel matchup. But where many decks utilize hand traps, some need the board breakers. And now, while cards like Evenly Matched are very good against the Yubel matchup and can devastate their board, we're seeing that a lot of players are needing their battle phase to crack additional pieces of the board, and that is why many players are starting to utilize cards such as Lightning Storm or Raigeki. And that has actually been paying dividends to the newest European winner that has actually been utilizing the Tenpai Dragons. So instead of worrying about using the perfect hand traps in the perfect places, a lot of players have been relying on the simple Lightning Storm or the Raigeki to crack an entire board after the Yubel is set up, and then comboing it with cards like the Forbidden Droplets to make sure that your destruction will go through, wiping the opponent's entire board, setting you up for success against the Yubel matchup. And then more decks like Tenpai rely on Raigeki and Lightning Storm. The slower decks such as Runic or Millennium can actually side deck cards like Lava Golem or even the Sphere Mode of Ra to actually crush an entire board of Yubel. And sometimes in decks like Runic, this is all you need to flip the script and maintain control in your favor for the duration of the duel. And probably one of the best ways to break Yubel board is honestly a Yubel card itself, and that is Super Polymerization. And now, keep in mind, while the Phantom of Yubel cannot be used as fusion material, a majority of the Yubel deck is actually prime targets for multiple fusion options. And the cards like Loving Defender needing Yubel monster or any effect monsters on the board, you can essentially rid an entire board if they have a Yubel monster other than the Phantom, or if you are playing Yubel yourself. And this can also be used as a form of interruption if you go first, set the Super Polymerization, and interrupt their combo line while they have a Yubel and multiple effect monsters as well. But not only that, many players overlook that the newest fusions out of Infinite Forbidden are all very good for Super Poly targets, with Aerial Eater needing 2 Fiend monsters with the same attribute, or when we look at the Fiendsmith fusions. And if you are interested in some spicy tech cards, definitely check out the top 10 cards to be picking up to be prepared for the future meta game. So stay safe, have a good night, and suck it, nerds.